Well, exciting days ahead, looking at data that should be coming from the NBS. That's expected by the 15th. That's next week. So, and well, the NBS has said this new 3 new indexes would be released then. So we look forward to that. Although the challenge of the website is still there, you know, over 3 weeks after we were told that it's been hacked. You know, we cannot get information from the side, the National Bureau of Statistics. So I wonder where the information will come from. Would we have to go to their X handle to get such important national information? Or perhaps the website would have returned or would have been reworked before then. We certainly do hope that would be the case and it will come back with stronger security features so that we would not have this downtime again. But let's stay on the rebasing and expectations of that now with the GCEO of Cowrie Asset Management Limited, Mr. Johnson Chukwu. Mr. Chukwu, good morning and welcome to the program. I should say Happy New Year. I think this is the first time we're speaking, you know, since we got into this year, at least on air.
Thank you for having me. Good morning and Happy New Year.
So how expectant are you? I don't know if you listened to that report. The CEO of NESG has said that the last rebasing of the GDP, which was done about 11 years ago, he implied that perhaps it was not optimized because of the political elements and all of that. So, I mean, that could also be a discouragement, you know, to this much awaited rebasing. This time is both the GDP and the CPI. How expectant, how much can we really expect from this?
As you know, the economy of any country is always dynamic, of every country is dynamic, particularly economies in emerging countries. Because what happens that in emerging economies, you see new business segments would evolve and begin to grow and become consequential or significant in the economy. And previously, because they were not there, they wouldn't have been captured in the GDP computation. So as the economy is expanding or diversifying, new segments of new businesses will come up. Even in advanced economies, the digital technology business was not there a couple of years back. It's now a major contributor to the economy. If you take, for instance, the Nigerian economy, for instance, 20 years ago, the telecommunication sector was inconsequential. I mean, prior to 2000, that sector was almost non-existent. Today, it contributes about 16% of the GDP. It's the second largest contributor to the GDP. You have the likes of media and entertainment that has become a vibrant segment of the economy, and that was not there at some point. So what has happened, or what we expect, is that the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics would have been able, through their surveys, identify, like they said, 3 new service sectors or 3 new sectors. Captured new sector that have become strong enough. I think they mentioned energy sector. They mentioned palm oil.
Food and services.
Yes, food and services. So we've seen expansion in some of these sectors. Take, for instance, the energy sector. Today we have an energy sector that is largely private sector driven, other than the transmission company of Nigeria manage the transmission grids. And we need to begin to monitor what level of power supply or energy supply do we have. Is it expanding or declining or shrinking? And what needs to be done? Because the basic thing we must recognize that statistical data that are published by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics or any other Bureau of Statistics is for use of decision makers to drive socioeconomic development. So I think this will give us a better understanding of the structure of the Nigerian economy so that people can also focus on which areas to invest in, which areas to go into, where the opportunities exist, and which sectors are shrinking. The government can actually take measures to stimulate or restore growth in those sectors that are declining.
What about the concern of political influence in the numbers? We've seen that play out even in our population number when census is going to be carried out or is being carried out. We've seen it in voters' card and all of that. What about that concern?
You know, for me, it's not a fundamental concern. It depends on the quality of leadership of NBS. NBS funding comes from international donor agencies, from the central bank. To a large extent, they are financially independent. Don't go cap a hand to any minister to say, give us money to carry out this survey. But beyond that, we've seen a Secretary General of the country that had done in previous years consistent report that we are even at variance with governments, what government desired able to see. But then they were presenting data, facts to government to work with. So I think it depends on the level of self-assuredness, the level of independence of mind of the Secretary General. I don't think if the Secretary General is independent-minded, anybody will push him around and ask to sex up the data that we use to arrive at either the GDP figure or the CPI figure. And that brings me to the issue around our current unemployment report, which also comes from the Bureau of Statistics. If you look at that report, Nigeria's latest unemployment figure is about 4.3%. About the same level with England, about 4.2%. England, UK has about 4.2%. Germany has about 3.2%, implying that Nigeria has at the same level of unemployment with a country like that. That's where the political influence should. We should make sure that it doesn't crop into statistical data that are relevant for decision making. If you ask anybody in Nigeria, do we have a 4.3% unemployment? It has actually lost its essence or its value in terms of being used as a decision-making tool. Because we as analysts, not even government is looking at the unemployment figure, because somehow when they change the method of computation, we arrive at a figure that becomes nonsensical. It becomes useless because Nigeria cannot say we have the same level of unemployment as England or Germany. So we need to go back and make sure that data or methods of arriving at our report reflect the unique nature of our economic and social environment, which is what the rebasing does. It's intended to ensure that statistical data are attuned, are aligned with the realities of that socio-economic environment so that it becomes relevant to the people who are using it for decision making.
Okay, so NBS has promised that next week we're going to see these 3 new indexes: energy, food, and services. What do you expect, especially energy? We know what has happened. So what do you expect? What position do you expect from those numbers?
You know, for the energy sector, because it was never treated as a separate item, remember that almost everything that runs on earth runs on energy. Everything, not almost everything, everything that is active runs on energy, be it animate or inanimate objects. If you look at the energy sector, starting from supply of liquid energy sources, fuel, diesel, base oil, and all the rest, to electric energy, and you need to be able to measure what size of energy are we generating as a country, which is what the statistical report will show. What's energy? We talk of, okay, sometimes we say we are still on 3,000 megawatts or 4,000 megawatts, but then what is the level of energy that even households are generating from our personal computers, from what we call I pass my neighbor, our personal generators, the office generators, the pass my neighbor generator, the industrial generators. By the time we sum up that, we look at what size of energy are we generating, and what are the cost of those energy generations, and what is the optimal energy need of the country. How do we make sure we're generating energy in the most efficient manner at the cheapest possible cost so that the economy become competitive? So that's what I expect to have. It will be difficult for me to hazard a guess on what percentage of the GDP the energy subsector will now account for. But clearly, if you are anywhere, you will see that your car is running on fuel. That's the fuel that we consume is part of energy consumption. Now we have battery-powered energy source, solar energy source is part of energy consumption, and we are going to be looking at the energy mix of the country. We are gradually migrating away from fossil fuel-dependent energy sources to alternative clean energy. To do the thing, we're in a tropical region, so we have a lot of solar power generation. And as we continue to measure this, we're going to continue to see shift in terms of our energy mix. And then we should be asking of what is a cleaner energy source and what's the cost of that energy source, and is it declining, and we're expanding those desired energy sources.
Yeah, I mean, that's our energy mix. A lot of countries have their energy mix. They have the data, and I think that will also bring a whole lot of push, to maybe adopting renewable energies and things like that. But, with data, we're supposed to be able to make planning, efficient planning, that is. And you mentioned the issue of the unemployment data. Since the new methodology was adopted, we've had a lot of, well, not so acceptable effort or perception to the numbers for obvious reasons, as you have noted. Having the same unemployment rate with the United States and the UK, was the reality of that. So we do hope that that's not what we're going to be seeing with this inflation number. But, the last time that our GDP was rebased, it made Nigeria the biggest on the continent. Do you see us getting to that? I know, was it last year, we did drop down to about number 4. Do you see that? Because we have a lot of activities in the ICT, telecoms, among other sectors. Do you see it pushing us up, our position back up?
We're most likely going to see an increase size of GDP because you are bringing in sectors that were not previously measured. But I don't think it can take us to become number 1. If it does take us to become number 1 to displace South Africa, then people are going to doubt the integrity of the data they have presented to us. Because the reality, if you look at even the energy sector, which will be the major sector that they are bringing into the mix, South Africa generates 10 times or more energy than we do. South Africa, of course, we know is an industrialized country. So the possibility that by bringing in the energy sector, we are going to see a material shift in terms of ranking of in African economies, and Nigeria takes the primus position again. I think that would put a huge question mark in their data. But I clearly know that introducing a sector that was not previously measured will clearly increase the size of the GDP.
Okay, so what's your expectation of inflation number, CPI, for December? I guess obviously it should be up, yes?
I avoid this kind of wide gazes because it's basically in the realm of conjecture. But I clearly will expect that our GDP figures in dollar terms should be above 300 billion. Of course, part of the reasons why our GDP had crashed to that region is because of devaluation. So when Naira strengthens, at the official and parallel market rate, we saw Naira depreciate beyond what it was last year. In 2023, remember that Naira closed about 907 Naira at the official window in December 2023, and about 1,206 Naira at the parallel market window. Last year, it closed up in the region of 1,500, 1,400 at both market segments. So, given that depreciation, which is what they have to apply to the Naira value of our GDP, we are still going to see a GDP that will be shy of the size that has been attained by South Africa.
All right, Mr. Johnson Chukwu, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts this morning.
Thank you for having me.